Welcome to Mmeaningless Reviews, Waifu Game Edition. It's time to talk about the new hot source of fan art and endless grinding, Genshin Impact. This review is specifically the game as of the most recent 1.2 update. I've played it since release and at this point done pretty much everything the game has to offer. And while my overall opinion of the game is pretty similar now to what it was originally, I can now provide a lot more detail of what I think about the game. This is not an analysis video. I'm not predicting where I think the story is going. The story is okay, but some parts are much more interesting than others. I mostly want to talk about the part where you play the game. So, Breath of the Wild looks a lot more anime than I remember, said everyone about Genshin Impact, and then they tried the game because it's free, and it wasn't bad. It's hard to overstate how much good character designs and positive initial impressions has helped this game become popular. But this is a review. You want to know what's good about the game, not if people are horny for Mona. Why is Mona so popular? I don't think she's even top 5 in the game. But I guess I just have trash taste in waifus. But the character designs are good, although they are all anime as hell. But what I'm really talking about when I say the character designs are good is that the male player character has waist-length hair. And as a guy with very long hair, it's nice to see. Even with full character customization, you usually can't get long flowing locks like that. So more than anything else, I like the hairstyles of the men in this game. And of course, the characters themselves actually do have character. Well, some of them. There's a few that aren't connected to the main plot and don't even have any side quests in the game yet, but you can get them from gatcha pulls already anyway. But again, screw all those waifus. I'm here to tell you that Venti is the best size of coffee and also by far the best character in the game. Maybe I've fallen for the exclusivity trap, because in addition to being the best written character, Venti was also a limited availability and is also the best crowd control in the game. He has a super attack that's just a big delete button with a vacuum effect, and it can speed up fights so much to the point I will basically never take Venti out of my active party. Coming right off saying this, however, I wouldn't say that this game is unbalanced by the rare or limited time characters, as they are really not essential to the game in any way. If you play multiplayer, you might see other people using some rare characters with insane utility, but at no point did I feel like I needed good characters to finish anything in the game. But speaking of online, I guess I should talk about the online features. They really don't matter. Outside of one treasure chest, you can do everything in this game solo, even events mainly designed for online team play. In fact, if you do play online, it'll be more for the fun of doing things with other people, and not for the challenge, because a lot of challenges in this game become completely trivial with multiple people fighting at once. Unlike a lot of live service games that aggressively push multiplayer, multiplayer is really just an afterthought in Genshin. It's a single-player experience at the core. And speaking of single-player experiences, does Genshin Impact have a lot of similarities to Breath of the Wild? Sure, some. But that's a good thing. Why wouldn't you copy success? There's some quests in Genshin Impact where you have to explore and find things yourself, and look around to figure out puzzles. Of course, there's also some quests where you're just led by the nose to the next objective and told exactly what to do. It's a mix, and it's not really copying anything that other games haven't done already. But the biggest difference to specifically Breath of the Wild is that Genshin is a sectional open world, where you have to progress the main plot to unlock new large areas, rather than a full sandbox-style game where you can just immediately go anywhere and do anything. I think this game gets better over time. I mean that in the sense of it being a live service game that's still adding features in new areas and quality of life changes, but also in the sense that I found the first area of this game rather underwhelming. The second main kingdom of this game and the mountain that was just added in 1.2 are significantly more interesting to explore and look at. Mondstadt is a rather generic-looking fantasy kingdom, while Liyue actually looks unique. Yeah, Liyue is modeled on ancient China and is the richest and most successful nation. I think there's a bit of developer bias here because MyHoYo is a Chinese developer, but at least it's visually different enough from the countless depictions of Japan in RPGs to still be at least a little bit fresh. But exploring is one half of the game. How about fighting stuff? Genshin's combat system is pretty okay. Individual characters don't have a huge amount of depth, although you can do things like manually aim for weak points as archers, although that usually isn't even worth it. But team composition is the name of the game. There are 7 elements, although currently there's only characters available for 6 of the elements, and big damage comes from combining them for reactions, not just swinging away at an enemy over and over for a long time. Is it the most in-depth combat system? No, but it has enough room for optimization and enough variety in enemies to not get old immediately. Also, pretty much any difficult challenge or endgame content will push you to defeat enemies quickly, so you are directly encouraged to master the combat system and find the most effective strategies, rather than just mash your way through inefficiently. However, outside of combat, the game has a few mechanics that are kind of underutilized. They may be expanded more over time, but as of now, they're not very important. One example of this would be gadgets, which on release didn't even exist, and initially didn't seem to do much. But as of version 1.2, there have been a lot more gadgets added, and they have become much more useful, and I have been using them significantly more in my gameplay, instead of just using them as weird niche items. Especially the one that lets you heal without opening a menu. But there's still some strange design choices that so far have led to nothing. Your choices in conversations during story missions change nothing about how the quests play out at all. But then there's a few instances where you can win someone over and avoid a fight with the right choices or pay slightly less money. You even get like a little heart meter showing how much the person likes you. But this really means nothing. It would be nice if that eventually actually led to some interesting decisions. Also, there's friendship level with individual characters, which unlock a nameplate and absolutely nothing else, so they have currently no purpose whatsoever. However, none of those are really complaints about the game. I do have one major complaint though. Currently, the level cap is far higher than the amount of content in the game, so if you're progressing towards the end game, you hit the grind. So, I seriously recommend just not doing it. Stop caring. Wait for new content and new areas to explore. Remember the Reggie quote,
"If it's not fun, why bother?"
Enemies in the overworld scale in level as you reach higher ranks, so just don't bother to rank up if you don't need to take on any new story missions. Eventually there will be satisfying endgame content in new areas, but only 2 of the 7 main nations of the game are even available yet. The only real endgame content is Spiral Abyss, which frankly isn't very much of a reward for the amount of grinding you need to do to beat the high levels of it. And as an RPG style game, there is a lot of things you can grind for. Here's a list. Character levels, character skills, character ascension materials, weapon levels, weapon ascension materials, artifact levels, artifact drops, common enemy item drops, common field drops, world boss drops. And of course, using pretty much every one of these costs money, so you'll probably completely run out of gold at some point. And what would any game be without bugs? Some lines in English just simply don't have voice acting, while they do in other languages, for some reason. And story dialogue often can't decide what pronouns to use for the main character, switching between genders at random because you can play as either a boy or a girl. Also, I had some controller configuration issues, but those have been fixed in patches. The only thing that's really an actual bug that affected the game is a couple teleporting enemies have sometimes clipped inside terrain where you can't hit them. But those are few and far between. Compared to most modern game releases, there's barely any bugs. I certainly didn't fall through the ground or see anyone T-posing. And I guess there's one more thing about the game that's pretty important. But you can tell from me slotting it here at the end as an afterthought, it doesn't really enter my mind much. This game is free to play because it's a gatcha game where you can spend real money for a chance to draw what you want, or you just have to grind for in-game currency for the same chance. What you want to get in this case almost certainly being characters. There are some rare weapons you can get as well that are quite good, but people aren't drawing lots of horny fan art of the weapons. And you don't play as the weapons, they're just tools with numbers and stat mods on them. It's all about the characters. Maybe I've become desensitized to gacha mechanics from playing a lot of these games, and still never spending money on them, but in a dramatic departure from most of them, Genshin Impact is a game worth playing. So I think that's really the final judgment of Genshin Impact. It's a free-to-play game that you can actually compare to standalone console titles from AAA publishers. It's entirely possible to play the game and have the gacha system as its complete afterthought. And if that doesn't indicate that Genshin has at least some good things going for it, I don't know what does.